my name is Faith.
Hi, I'm Steve.
And this is your friendly neighborhood home inspector podcast. Today we should be talking about radon. But what exactly is radon?
Good question. Radon is a naturally occurring earth gas. It comes from the breakdown of uranium, so it exists everywhere on the planet.
Okay, is it more common in areas with caves or is it common throughout the country?
I don't think caves have any increased reason for having radon. It has to do with this amount, it's uranium beneath the soil. So uranium has those higher levels throughout the country. I think there's some places upper East Coast that have really high levels. Some places like Florida, I believe, have very low levels because they've got a very sandy soil and not a lot of uranium in it.
Huh. From my understanding, it's the second leading cause of lung cancer, a long way behind smoking.
Right, smoking's number one by a long shot, and then the second leading cause is radon gas. Back to a question you just said. You said, does it have to do with caves? Think about that. Florida has a lot of sinkholes. They've got a lot of caves.
There's not a lot of radon in Florida, but is there a lot in Missouri?
Missouri, that's good question. Missouri is average. We're not off the charts high, and we're not definitely not low. We're middle of the road.
If I remember correctly, the country average or the worldwide average for radon is 1 out of every 4 homes. So that seems like it's the same for Missouri as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that number that was the number for the whole world, but we've been tracking it since we've been doing testing. We're keeping track of what results we're getting and the number of houses we're doing. So we're finding 1 in 4 of the houses that we do test come up with high radon. And we don't test every house we inspect. It's up to the buyer to ask for a test on radon. We ask them if they want it. Their agents ask them about it. Unfortunately, not everyone is educated about it, and they may see it as just an additional expense when they're already going through a lot of expenses buying the house. The appraisal, the inspection, all these things these hoops they're jumping through. So they could, say to themselves, well, I'll skip this radon test, I'll do that later. That's exactly the wrong time. I mean, the time to test for it is when you're buying.
When you're setting up a radon test and when you're doing a radon test, you want to be careful to not have the home be opened up, because you're testing what is the radon like when you're inside the contained space of your house.
So what do we call that? Closed home conditions.
Closed home conditions.
So that means you can run the air conditioner and the furnace the way you normally would. You can use the bath fans the way you normally would. And some people need them more than others. You can also use your ceiling fans in the room you're not doing the testing. But you want to keep the windows shut. You open and close the doors as you normally would, but don't open the windows and don't run the ceiling fan inside the room that the machine's set up, because we don't want to have that much air movement.
So because you want to keep your house in closed home conditions, would winter be the best time to test for it?
Winter is the best time, but not because of the closed home condition. They have found, is it January or February, is Radon Awareness Month. One of those 2 months, I can't remember right now. You want to look it up?
I'll look it up.
So January is the EPA's Radon Awareness Month. And the reason we do that is because radon levels tend to be highest in January, and they don't know for sure, but they think it's because of the ground being cold and wet. It sort of traps the radon in so it can take the path of least resistance, which would be under your house.
Now, radon can be a big issue. It, according to the EPA, claims around 21,000 lives each year.
Right.
Which is just terrible. I know we've done a couple of radon tests in homes where the radon levels are about 50, where you want to get about 4.
4.
People in the home, if they're older and have lived there for a while, some of those people have lung cancer.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, we've had people call us to test us because they've been diagnosed with lung cancer, and then they're trying to figure out the root cause, and then we're the bearer of bad news.
So how much does it cost to fix a radon problem like this?
These are, yeah, we're getting into some complicated stuff here for a couple of reasons, but the fix isn't terribly expensive. It's somewhere between $1,200 and $2,100, and it's going to depend on the complexity of the house and the size of the house. I'll tell people when you're buying a radon mitigation system, you're not buying the fan, the piping, the hole in the ground. You're buying a solution to the problem. So the good news is radon is easy to fix. It's not a hard thing to mitigate for. I've never seen a house that couldn't be mitigated if someone wanted to. It's important just to find out that it needs to be mitigated. So to answer your question, typically less than $2,000 should fix your radon problem.
And for the state of Missouri, or at least Springfield, if you were to do a radon test while you're in the process of buying a home, who would usually pay for it?
The buyer is responsible for testing, and the seller, it's not a rule, the seller generally pays for the mitigation. And the reason that plays out that way is if you went to buy a house and we tested it for radon and it was high, if you were to not buy the house, the seller is obligated to disclose the fact that they have a high radon. If you didn't buy it and they put it back on the market, they're going to say, buy my 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that has high radon. And any logical buyer would be like, well, I'll look at it, but you got to fix that radon problem.
Yeah. There's a lot of misinformation about radon. I know I've talked to a couple people in the past week who think just because they have they're getting a crawl space home as opposed to a basement home, they don't have to test for radon. Is there a difference in radon levels between a crawl space and a basement home?
I myself thought that, well, if you have a crawl space home, you're separated from the earth, you're not going to have as high radon levels. But we had a gentleman from Kansas City come down and do a training session in our city, and we sponsored. We had like 7 people in the class out of 14. We were half the class was our company, and he was adamant that radon levels can be high in crawl space homes because you got this exposed earth down there, and then all your HVAC, your heating and air conditioning ductwork, travels through your crawl space, and it has what's called communication. It allows air to enter it and leave from it, and so you are getting this air. See, what happens is the radon is in the ground, and the taller your house is, the more radon you potentially could have in it because there's a thing called stack effect. The bottom of your house is in a negative pressure, and the top of your house is in a positive pressure. So if you have like can lights on your ceiling, the air is leaving your house through these can lights into your attic space, and the air is coming from beneath you. If you had an onion in your crawl space or your basement, you're going to smell it upstairs because the air is moving that way. If you had a raw onion in your attic, you're not going to smell it because that onion smell is going up and out the roof vents. So for that, the very nature of this stack effect, that's why radon is even a problem in a house.
How is the mitigation system different between like a crawl space and a basement home? And like what exactly is the mitigation process?
Okay, so good question. Let's just first talk about how they mitigate for radon. So imagine it's a basement home, and we talked about the stack effect, how the pressures are negative in the basement and the air leaks in the attic. So the way to mitigate it is beneath your basement floor is a sub-slab. So your basement's a slab, so you do sub-slab depressurization. You put a 4-inch hole in the floor of your basement. Beneath that concrete, there should be gravel. And then we put this 4-inch opening, and on top of that, we install a pipe, and that pipe goes up out of the house. And once that pipe leaves the envelope of the house, so it's either in the attic or the outside, we put it's like 15-watt fan. So it's a fan that's designed to run continuously, and it starts pulling the air out from beneath the sub slab. So this reduces the radon gas. It also has the effect of reducing the humidity in the lower levels because you don't have humid moisture trying to get into the house. If you're going to mitigate a crawl space, if you had just a crawl space home, you'd have that beneath the vapor barrier, and that'd be a perforated pipe. So if you already have a vapor barrier in your crawl space and you think, oh, I'm halfway there, a vapor barrier installed to reduce moisture in a crawl space is often not installed well enough to mitigate for radon. You can do an okay job and control the moisture, but you can do an okay job with a vapor barrier installation to control moisture, but you've got to do a really good job of a vapor barrier installation to reduce radon gas if you're going to mitigate.
We have a couple of people on our service provider list on our website for radon mitigation that I'll link in the description of this episode.
Yeah, because Moralski Home Inspections does not mitigate for radon. Mitigation companies will have testing equipment, but we believe that we do radon testing, septic inspections, termite inspections. We don't fix termites, we don't fix septics, we don't mitigate for radon because we think it's really important to have a separation between the service provider and the person telling you have a problem.
I have a weird question. My house currently has low radon, and it's not near the cutoff level of having high radon at 4?
Which is 4. It's 4 picocleries. It's just a measurement system, so 4.
I just not knew that. Is there anything that could cause it besides just like seasonal differences that could cause it to drastically rise and stay high?
If someone drops uranium off in your basement, your radon will go up.
Sure.
So the other things that could change the radon level, besides weather conditions, when there is a change in the environment surrounding your house. So a construction project could affect the radon levels in your house. So if yours were low and they built a shopping mall within a couple, I don't know what it'd be, I guess within half a mile of your house, and now they've paved over half an acre, the air moving through the earth could change direction and now be coming up more. It might have an easier path in your crawl space or basement than it did before, especially in Missouri because we've got karst topography. Road construction, large building construction, these are the things the EPA say could affect it. Because if we test your house for radon, we don't know it's going to be low forever. We just know what it is the day we test it.
48 hours that we test it.
Like during that time period, right? And you can't say, well, my house is going to be fine because my neighbor's house is low. You don't know what yours is unless you test it. But that being said, we do a test for a real estate transaction with a calibrated machine. And we provide a printed out report that you can use in communicating with your seller. You can buy, now that because electronics costs have come down, this wasn't even possible 5 years ago, but you can buy a consumer grade radon monitor that you plug in the same way we plug in CO detectors, and then you can watch the radon levels in your house. And if they are high consistently, a couple of times, they keep popping up above 4, then I would recommend you call someone like us to place a calibrated machine, confirm that it's actually high, and then you can make a decision to mitigate. You could make the mitigation decision based on the machine you have plugged in the wall. It's basically, you want to make a $1,400 decision to fix something, with this plug-in tester versus our tester, which is just, like I said, calibrated every year by a lab. If the radon was really high with my plug-in one, like 10, I wouldn't call us. I would just call a radon mitigator.
Yeah.
We found one of my best friends, his house was 40. It was very high.
Oof.
And so they got that mitigated, and he has the plug-in one. And so it happens to be in his gym. So whenever he's working out, he can look at the wall, and his has been sitting at 2.3 and 2.2 ever since he mitigated it. And incidentally, those numbers are what we should expect to see just in the environment. And because it's a naturally occurring earth gas, you're not going to get your radon level down to 0. You're going to get it down below 4 is what you're going to do.
It's like trying to fight off air.
Right, right.
Well, that I believe is all the questions that I had for today. If you have any questions for us, just go ahead and message us over social media. I'll have that linked in the description. I'm Faith.
I'm Steve.
Have a great rest of your evening.
This has been a Morawski Inspections podcast. If you want to know more about our services, visit our website at morawskiinspections.com.